So we're going to finish our discussion on ethics in research. And one of the things we're going to talk about is ethics in animal research. So one of the reasons why we like to use animals in research is because human physiology can resemble animal physiology in many ways. So we can do research on animals that we maybe wouldn't have the ability to do on humans because animals are more readily available. But however, there are some ethical concerns about using animals in research. And one of those concerns is it right to place the well-being of humans above the well-being of animals? That's important. And it's interesting to note that research shows that when an animal is similar to us, say in a chimpanzee or other primates, or when an animal is a companion animal like dogs and cats, we seem to care more about their well-being than, say, other animals we use in research like mice and rats. And so I think that's interesting that we even have our own hierarchy of animals in terms of those we're willing to use for research and those that we're more cautious about using for research. Also, we need to think about the pain and stress that we're causing on an animal. That's another big issue because if, the animals don't know what's going on, so if the research causes the animal to experience a great deal of stress or pain, it can affect their behavior and that can distort their research. So sometimes studies are not worth doing on animals because of that, because, it's going to cause so much suffering to the animal that it will distort the results and then you won't be able to generalize them to humans anyway. So in cases like that, you're going to try to either change the study or you're going to try to find humans that you can use for the research. However, animals have benefited from animal research. We've learned things about group behavior, and this has changed, say, for example, zoo conditions. So animals get outside time and inside time and socialization time. So animals themselves often do benefit from research that's being done to look at humans. They get some side benefits from it. Now, when it comes to ethics and research for humans, the American Psychological Association, the APA, has come up with a bunch of ethical principles. And in order to conduct research on humans, you have to do a number of things. For example, you have to have informed consent. In other words, the participants have to agree to be a part of the study. You can't force people to be a part of your study. And the big part of this word is informed. They need to know what they're signing up for. That's important. They have to be able to give informed consent. Small children, for example, can't give informed consent. Their parents can give informed consent for them, but there are some ethical guidelines when you're using children in a study, for example. Also, you want to protect them from harm and discomfort as much as possible. That is important. You're looking out for the well-being of the participants. You also want to maintain confidentiality, and you usually do this by helping the participants remain anonymous, removing identifying markers such as their name, their social security number, their date of birth, etc. And at the end of the study, it's really important that you debrief the participants as to the research. You explain the research afterwards. You explain what they went through. And this is important because sometimes in studies, you put the participants in an uncomfortable situation. And if they don't understand the research afterwards, that can lead to some guilt and might cause psychological harm. And so debriefing is extremely important. Now, one of the ways that the APA tries to ensure that ethical guidelines are being followed is that universities have what they call IRBs, institutional review boards. And the purpose of an IRB is to review every proposed research experiment and to decide whether or not it meets ethical guidelines. And if it does, they will approve that research to be conducted. And if it does not, they will not allow that experiment to occur. And these are really important, and they help safeguard the well-being of every participant in research studies. And so before we had IRBs, say in the early 1900s to mid-1900s, when they really started to develop, there were a lot of studies done, and there wasn't a formal process to make sure that people were following ethical guidelines. And so some of the studies were conducted back then would not pass today. And so those are just some of the things we have to think about when we talk about dealing with animals or humans in research.